Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. We start with the US, which says it will not support or be involved in Turkey's planned operation east of the Euphrates River in northern Syria. In a statement, the White House said Ankara will now be responsible for all ISIS fighters captured in the area in the last 2 years. It says having defeated the ISIS so-called caliphate, US forces will no longer be in the immediate area. In the meantime, President Erdogan's spokesman Ibrahim Kalin said the planned safe zone aims to clear terrorist elements from the border. He said Ankara wants refugees to safely return to Syria within the framework of the country's territorial integrity. The developments came hours after a phone call between President Erdogan and his US counterpart Donald Trump. Earlier, Erdogan announced air and ground military operations in Syria. In Baghdad, 8 more protesters have died in clashes between protesters and security forces. The government has blamed what it calls malicious hands for the unrest, in which 109 people have died and 6,000 have been injured. The Interior Ministry says an investigation is underway to determine who was behind the violence. Interior Ministry spokesman said protesters have burnt 51 public buildings and 8 political party headquarters. Iraq's Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani has urged the protesters and the security forces to end the violence. Prime Minister Adil Abdul Mahdi has pledged to talk with the protesters without preconditions. Abdul Mahdi defended the security forces, saying they only use force in extreme cases of self-defense. With the Indian-occupied Kashmir under a crushing lockdown and radio silence for the past 64 days, Indian government has expressed total ignorance to the plight of Kashmiris, saying it has no information of any clampdown in the occupied valley. The Home Ministry issued the statement in response to the right to information request by activist Venkatesh Nayak. In its reply, the ministry said it has no information on the names and the locations of thousands of arrested Kashmiris. The ministry said it has directed the query to occupied Kashmir, saying information might be available with the state government. Interestingly, the application cannot be forwarded to the valley's government, as Indian Information Act is not applicable in the occupied valley. Responding, the activist said how officials could not have any information about the valley when it is currently under presidential rule. In India, Nagaland rebel leader Twinklang Muavia says New Delhi's annexation of occupied Kashmir is unacceptable. In an interview, Muavia said revocation of Kashmir's special status was a violation of past pacts and the history of the region. Rejecting New Delhi's decision, the rebel leader said the move is nothing short of betrayal. The National Socialist Council of Nagalim leader Muavia is pursuing a separate sovereign state for the Naga people. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan will leave for China on a 3-day visit today to discuss regional issues and bilateral ties. During his visit, the Prime Minister will hold separate meetings with Chinese President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang. The two countries will discuss expansion of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor projects. They will also deliberate implementation of Phase 2 of China-Pakistan Free Trade Agreement to boost trade ties. This will be Imran Khan's 3rd visit to China within a year. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif says any peace deal in Afghanistan should not favor foreigners. The Foreign Minister says Iran supports peace talks, taking everyone within the country on board. He said foreign powers should not exclude one or several groups from the process by exerting influence to serve their vested interests. On the 18th anniversary of the US invasion of Afghanistan, the Taliban say America has totally failed in its ambitions. In a statement, group said they have brought the US down to its knees in the country. It said the only way to end the war is a complete withdrawal of the US forces from the shattered country. The statement said the group will fight US forces for another 18 years unless their demands are met. It said Afghanistan has witnessed the brutality and the criminality of foreign invaders and their allies. Denouncing the presidential polls held last month, the Taliban said what it called the selected government has failed. Portugal's centre-left Socialist Party has won Sunday's parliamentary elections. Prime Minister Antonio Costa's party took 106 seats in the 230-member parliament. The Socialists will need to put together a coalition because it was unable to win an outright majority in the House. Leaders of the left bloc and the Communists have backed Costa since the last election in 2015. Both say they are open to negotiation if the Socialists commit to improving the lives of the working class. Costa said he will continue working to build a united Europe.
We will never give up in the defense of a stronger Europe, more cohesive and more solidarity, because within Europe and with Europe, we will build our future.
More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned with Indus. Welcome back. Tunisia's moderate Ennahda party is leading with 18% of the votes in Sunday's parliamentary election. Exit polls show the leading party's main rival, the Heart of Tunisia party, is at 16%. Both Ennahda and Heart of Tunisia have ruled out being part of any coalition with each other. Ennahda's projected vote share translates into only about 40 seats, with 109 needed to form a majority. The results hints at a deeply fractured future parliament. These are the country's third parliamentary polls after its successful transition to democracy following the 2011 revolution. Opposition parties have won Kosovo's general elections. Unofficial results show the centre-left Vetivon Dosai and centre-right Democratic League have each won 25% of the votes. President Hashim Tachi's Democratic Party of Kosovo came third on 20%. With no one taking an absolute majority, the opposition camps will need to unite against the PDK to form a coalition government. On his victory, the Vetivon Dosai leader and candidate for Prime Minister Albin Kurti said his party will fight corruption till the end.
With us in power, there will be no thieves in the government. There will be no thieves in the state institutions. In line with the rule of our law, thieves will be fought, investigated, prosecuted, and punished in our society, wherever they are.
The snap polls were called in July after Prime Minister Ramush Haradinaj resigned to face a war crimes court in The Hague. It is the fourth election since Kosovo declared independence from Serbia in 2008. Moving on, French President Emmanuel Macron has given British Prime Minister Boris Johnson a week to submit a final Brexit plan. In a telephone call, Johnson discussed his Brexit proposal and asked Macron's support for a deal with the EU. The French president urged Johnson to step up his negotiations with the EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier. Brussels has dismissed the UK proposals tabled last week, calling them incomprehensive and impractical. Britain and the EU are due to resume talks today to find a new agreement ahead of the key EU summit on October the 17th. But the Irish backstop continues to be a sticking point. In Ukraine, thousands of people have rallied in Kiev against President Volodymyr Zelensky's plan to grant autonomy to the eastern Donbass region. Russia and Ukraine have agreed to hold talks on an election schedule for the disputed region. Protesters say the move will protect Russia's interests and they will fight to stop it going ahead. Ukraine has been fighting Russian-backed separatists in the eastern Donbass for more than 5 years. Over 13,000 people have been killed during the conflict. Germany's Interior Minister Horst Seehofer has warned of a mass influx of refugees in Europe, even bigger than that in 2015. During a visit to Greek islands, Seehofer said EU has to do more to support Turkey so that refugees do not attempt dangerous crossings to Greece. He said Turkey is doing a great deal in welcoming millions of refugees and Europe has to avoid a crisis for which it is unprepared. Seehofer said he has the support of Chancellor Angela Merkel over the refugees policy. In the United States, a second whistleblower has come forward in the impeachment case against U.S. President Donald Trump. The first whistleblower's lawyer, Mark Zed, said the second person is also an intelligence officer. He said the whistleblower has knowledge of allegations linked with a phone call between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Last week, the White House released a transcript showing how Trump urged Zelensky to probe his political rival Joe Biden. Democrats have accused Trump of seeking foreign help to smear Biden and launched an impeachment inquiry against him. Trump has rejected the allegations. Mauritius Prime Minister Pravind Kumar Jagannath has dissolved the parliament and announced a general election on November the 7th. The country holds elections every 5 years, with the last one in 2014. By law, the country has been between 30 and 150 days to organize elections after the Prime Minister dissolves the parliament. Jagannath will seek another term as leader of the militant socialist movement. He has served as Prime Minister since 2017, when he took over from his father, Anirudh Jagannath. In southern Armenia, villagers are protesting against the construction of an open-cast gold mine, posing ecological threat to the region. The government has approved the project despite environmental concerns and legal controversies. This reporter will tell you more.
Since 2006, the offshore company Lydian has invested hundreds of millions to extract gold from the Amulsar Mountains. The range is thought to contain 40 tons of the precious metal. From a small Caucasus mountain nation, hundreds of activists gathered in the capital Yerevan, demanding an end to the venture. Villagers say gold mining will pollute drinking water and damage local tourist hotspots, thus affecting their livelihoods. The mining company dismisses villagers' fears as unsubstantiated, but local ecologists warn of their potential dangers.
Due to heavy metals, the bottom substrate, the chemical composition, the water morphology, and the hydrobiology of the river will change, resulting in unmanageable environmental consequences. The water ecosystem will be disrupted.
Environmental groups campaigning against the enterprise are unconvinced by the latest findings.
We are fighting for Armenia, for nature. We are against the mining companies that have come to enrich themselves at the expense of our country and our health. And we will never let that happen.
The frustrated villagers are raising questions about the safety and survival of the next generation. Should the government give go-ahead?
In a heart-wrenching display of compassion, 6 elephants defied the basic instinct of self-preservation to save members of their herd. The epic incident occurred at Khao Jai National Park's Hayo Narok waterfall in northeastern province of Nakhon Ratchasima in Thailand, but the story ended like a Shakespearean tragedy.
Elephants are well known for their intelligence, close family ties, and social complexity. It was a scene to behold as one after the other 5 elephants descended the slippery cliff to rescue a calf. The largest land mammals showed that they had the largest heart.
We understand that the elephants were trying to cross over to the other side of the river. Probably one of the smaller elephants might have slid, and the adults were trying to rescue him, but instead they were swept away by the water.
Talking to the media, officials said 2 elephants were saved in the incident as the waterfall has been closed temporarily.
At the moment, the elephants are taking a break. They're quite tired from trying to cross over from the other side. They're just resting by standing still because they have used up a lot of energy wading through the water stream. I think they should be able to gradually get back up through the same way they went down.
There are around 300 wild elephants in the park, which covers more than 2,000 square kilometers of forest and grassland.
Lows and the highs of the business world, Asian markets have traded mixed as investors ahead of a fresh round of US-China trade negotiations later this week. Japan's Nikkei 225 fell marginally, while Shanghai stocks dipped almost 1%. South Korea's Kospi recovered with fractional gains after sliding earlier. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index lost over 1%. Australia's DAX showed up over 0.5% in gains, while London's FTSE traded over 0.5% higher. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. Thank you for watching. For further updates, stay tuned to Indus News.